I'm now joined by Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen's coming off an impressive knockout victory at UFC 170 over Robert Whittaker, taking his pro record to 9-1 and his UFC record to 4-1. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
And congratulations on a very, very impressive performance at the weekend.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of hard work and training to get to where I am, and I'm just glad to be here, man.
I mean, there's a few firsts for this weekend, but I first want to say, I mean, this was a tough fight. I mean, Robert Whittaker won tough smashes. He's quite well known. This was a really, really big fight, and you went in there and, you made it look easy, and I know it wasn't easy. What were your thoughts on Robert Whittaker as an opponent going into the fight?
Well, I knew he was going to be a striker. I knew he was a former karate guy, so it was kind of like the battle of the karate kids, as is the only other word I was getting. But I knew he was a tough striker, had one hit, one knockout power, and I knew how to stay away from that. I knew I had to be faster than him and just stay away from his power hands. And I knew he was training at TriStar, which is a great gym, a gym I've trained at before, but they got a lot of good wrestling, a lot of jiu-jitsu there, and I kind of expected him to want to try and stand with me, and I went out there and just did my thing, my friend. I kept him guessing, kept my movement going, and finally ended up with the knockout.
I mean, obviously we all know what your background is. It's very well publicised with your martial arts background and your kickboxing background. Do you love it when guys stand with you in the octagon?
I don't. I was kind of surprised that Robert Whittaker was going to actually come in the cage and want to stand with me. I was still aware of his takedowns, and if he was going to try and do that, just the way I move and my stance makes it a little bit more difficult for those guys to shoot in my leg because I have a really wide stance. So very rarely do they catch me with my legs together. But yeah, I was fairly surprised that he was actually going to go in this fight and bang with me.
This was also your first time on the main card of a pay-per-view. What was the build-up like to the event, and what with all the hype and with the media? What was all that like?
Man, it was fairly stressful, to be honest with you. Of course, UFC always takes good care of you, but I knew that it was my first pay-per-view, and they were expecting good things and an exciting fight for me and Robert Whittaker. And I just wanted to. I was kind of nervous because I wanted to get out there and put on a good show. So it was a little nerve-wracking, but as soon as the cage closed and all that left me, and I was focused, I was in the game, I was ready to rock and roll, and just kind of let it happen.
I mean, you got the finish quite early on in the fight. I think it was around the 3.5 minute mark. You're finding your range. Could you just feel that was going to be coming? Because you dropped him before you finished. Because you dropped him twice, didn't you? And then was able to get the finish. Did you feel you were getting closer and closer as the fight was going?
Yeah, I did actually. He had a really good jab. He hit me with a few jabs out there. You could tell he'd done some studying in the way I move, and basically whenever I would move in, he would just stick the jab out there, and I would actually run. I actually ran into it a few times. It's kind of frustrating. I was, man, why am I running into this jab? But the more I spent time out there in the cage with Robert, the more comfortable I got. The more, the faster I kind of figured him out fairly quickly, and just tried to swing and make him miss and counter his striking, and that's exactly what happened out there. It feels really good when a strategy or a game plan, you go out there and it works for you.
Of course, as well, you were one of the standouts of the night. You've got a performance bonus. It's the new term now, the performance bonuses, and it's your second UFC bonus. How much of a surprise was it to get the performance bonus?
Man, it's no words to really describe the feeling that you get when you find out you get the performance bonus. But I've always been, I've always wanted to go out there and put on a good show every time, and that's what we hear. That's what we fight in the UFC, to put on a show for the fans, and that's what it's all about. I think that's what all the fighters in the UFC should strive for. Just make it exciting, make it fun, make people want to watch. And I think when you do that, it definitely makes the UFC, Dana White, very happy. And that's how I've always been. And to get this second bonus, it definitely puts a smile on my face.
Do you feel like any extra pressure going in because of the background, because of what your dad did, because of what you've done away from MMA, and also the links you've got in your family? Do you feel any added pressure when you step into that cage?
You know what? I did going into the fight the first time. Actually my first two times in the UFC. The first time I fought at 143 and 145. There was a lot of pressure because I was undefeated at the time, and just being undefeated and having a good striking record, and Carlos Machado being my jiu-jitsu instructor, and just having a fighting family. There was a lot of pressure there just because I was undefeated. But now that I actually have my first loss against Matt Brown, there's no more pressure anymore, really. I just kind of go out there and fight. That's all I think about now. I don't think about the hype. I don't think about, all that going into the fight, because it does mess with you, and it can really affect your performance out there in the cage. And that's who I am, and I keep positive people around me, and that definitely helps me out as well.
How did you feel after the fight? Is there any knocks or injuries, and when would you like to get back in and compete again?
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, I actually ended up hurting my hand in that fight. Finishing with the last few punches ended up hurting my hand, so I'm just kind of resting it and just getting a few days of healing up time, and yeah, man, we'll see. We'll get back in there and do it again.
I mean, you are, like I said at the start of the interview now, you are 4-1, of course. You've got the one loss to Matt Brown, but we've seen Matt Brown go on a hell of a run, and he's beaten a lot of big names, and he's kind of put himself in the title picture. So you don't get too much discredit for, I think, a loss to somebody like Matt Brown. So have you got your eye on anybody you'd like to face?
You know what? The welterweight division is so big and so broad. There's so many people out there, and not a whole lot of people that I'm actually thinking about fighting. I mean, we're fighters, and that's what we do. We'll fight anybody who steps in the cage with us. So that's basically up to our manager and our coaches and Dana White and Joe Silva to make that match. To make that matchup, and we'll go out there and we'll fight anybody. To be honest with you, that's what we do. We're fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said at the start, it was a real standout performance at the weekend, which is of course why you won the bonus. So congratulations. It was a pleasure to watch.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And before we let you go, I just want to give you a chance to do any shout-outs. Let the listeners know about your Facebook and Twitter, and also shout any friends, family, sponsors that you'd like to shout out.
Oh, definitely, man. I would like to thank everybody back home in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Everybody Upstate Karate and Team Pitch Black, all the guys there with at our gym. I would like to thank my management company, Alchemist Management, and you can follow me on Wonderboy MMA on Twitter. You can also follow me on Instagram at Wonderboy MMA, and Facebook, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I would also like to thank my sponsor, Bad Boy. So I appreciate you having me on the show, man, and it's a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, and I can't wait to see you step in the cage again.